The 2019 Video Game Awards recently came and went, and Nintendo was there, sort of, I guess, but the real star of the show has to be the brief glimpses we got at the next generation of video games from both Microsoft and Sony. Of course, we're still a few years out at least from Nintendo revealing their hand for their next generation, but my question for today is, how will next generation in the interim affect Nintendo? Let's talk about it. To be clear, the bulk of this video won't really talk much about people that already have a Switch. Parker already did a video that sort of covers the effect that next gen may or may not have on us. This video will be more about the strategies I think Nintendo could or should employ to attract new users to the Switch, despite the fact that they will soon be facing off against much more technically impressive hardware, even compared to where they stand now. Of course, this will still be relevant to you if you do have a Switch. New Switch owners joining the fray benefits everybody, even if it's just in a roundabout way, because the more Nintendo Switch grows as a platform, the more third parties will be incentivized to continue to support the Switch moving forward, even with the increased gap in power between Switch and the other next generation consoles. There are a few key things Nintendo can utilize moving into the next generation to continue with the momentum they've had since Switch initially launched. Some will be strategies that are relatively new to them, but this next one is a strategy that's existed ever since Nintendo had competent rivals to speak of in the early days of console gaming as we know it. That of course being their games, because duh. The obvious advantage Nintendo Switch will head into the next generation of consoles in its favor is the established library of critically and commercially acclaimed games that have been accrued on the platform. The debate on which year was the best for Switch, or whether or not there will ever be a better year than that person's personal favorite year for Switch, is a debate that reverberates throughout the vocal Nintendo Switch fanbase. We should know. But when talking about the future success of Nintendo Switch when it comes to new users, I don't think that this debate matters a whole lot. People will and are being won over by games that have existed on the platform for some time now, and we still will, of course, continue to see new releases. That's not to say it doesn't matter at all. The disdain this audience shows for Wii U ports that nobody has played in their lives demonstrates that perception plays a powerful role in the excitement surrounding a release schedule. In other words, just because they haven't personally experienced an older game, they know other people have, so those games don't get the credit they probably should. That said, the best-selling Switch game is also the best-selling Wii U game, so it's safe to say the masses feel differently about this concept. That means, while yes, Nintendo will need to be sure to continue to surprise and delight new and existing Switch owners with impressive new games, preferably at an increased rate relative to what we've seen, these games that have been released so far are arguably just as big as a boon in a lot of ways when it comes to winning over new potential Switch owners. Being able to buy into a platform like Nintendo Switch that already has an established library of high quality games like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the list goes on, is a pretty big deal. And that'll work even more so in their favor once they add more and more to that stack with games like Animal Crossing New Horizons. Something is going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. This is a strategy that worked for them when they skipped the 32-bit era for home consoles in favor of further supporting the 16-bit SNES, and later continued to work for them once they ultimately decided to maintain their handheld strategy of lower cost hardware bolstered entirely by their stable of IP and innovative approach to gaming interfaces like motion or touch controls to apply it to their home consoles. And luckily enough for Nintendo, that's still in line with their approach here. The way I see it, there are two kinds of consumers when it comes to buying into video game platforms, and that can be separated into two groups. Group A, people that purchase a new console off the strength of one or two games with the hope that they'll continue to see more games that appeal to them in the future. Or Group B, people that wait until there's a sizable lineup of blockbuster titles that appeal to them with promise of more in the near future. Most of the time, Group B is a lot more likely to hold out for deals on the hardware and software, and that's another piece piece of this puzzle, the price. Nintendo Switch is nearing the end of its third holiday season on the market, and it's important to note that despite having some time under its belt, it still was a record-setting holiday season in many regards. That becomes even more impressive when you acknowledge that they still haven't lowered the MSRP. The closest the console itself has gotten to a discount to date was the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundles, which again is a half-decade-old Wii U port, and you may find retailers every now and then that have some money shaved off or a gift card bundled in, but from the top down on Nintendo's end, the Switch's MSRP is still unchanged from the day it launched. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bringing that up to disparage Nintendo's approach in any way. I'm doing the opposite, really. I mentioned in the past that I think Nintendo's clear Disney inspirations when it comes to their marketing plans are really shrewd. In this case, their bullish refusal to discount anything unless they feel it's absolutely necessary will serve as one of their secret weapons coming into the next generation. And that's already been happening on some level with the occasional sales that Nintendo will have for the software, but I think we can all agree that the quantity and quality of Switch discounts will improve as time goes on. We talked a lot about the history of Nintendo Selects program, and if you'd like to know more about this particular aspect of Nintendo Switch's life cycle, you could check that video out. It's linked up above in the card. To sum it up for the context of this video, I think the possibility of buying games like Breath of the Wild for as low as $20 will speak volumes on store shelves when people are deciding what console they should buy next, especially parents when they're deciding on what platform is best to invest in for their kid or kids. Which brings me to the next advantage Nintendo Switch has over its next generation competition, its form factor. Historically, on average, handhelds have performed much better than home consoles when it comes to unit sales. And that's because families are a lot more likely to own multiple handhelds than they are to own multiple home consoles. Home consoles are communal, handheld consoles are not. Of course, Switch is both, and that's worked wonders when it comes to its home console-like price point, but in the long run, they'll need to get to that handheld-like price point to reach the full potential of its handheld nature. Enter Switch Lite. The first glimpse at what can happen when a console like Switch is priced a lot closer to what people paid for handhelds like the new 3DS XL when that first released. Just imagine next holiday season when we could very well be seeing the Switch Lite for much closer to the $149.99 price point that the smaller, more affordable 3DS typically retailed for in its prime, and a $249.99 regular Switch isn't anything to scoff at either, especially if we get into the bundling game. Imagine a bundle with some of Nintendo's Switch staples that were targeted at specific audiences. A Switch Lite single-player focused bundle with Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, or a regular Nintendo Switch bundle that's geared toward multiplayer games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Smash Bros. Ultimate. Honestly, with Switch Lite, they could think a bit outside the box when it comes to Pokemon releases. Like for instance, with the rumored release of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes, they could bundle together two Nintendo Switch units that are themed after Diamond and Pearl respectively in the games. Something like that would become a top seller without fail, even if it was priced as if you bought all components separately at retail price. No matter what they do, as long as they make the Switch and Switch Lite look like a steal, they'll have no problem keeping up with the next generation consoles coming into holiday 2020. But that won't work all year, and it won't work for every year. Knowing Nintendo, they'll keep Switch at its current MSRP for some time now and will only temporarily discount it during different holiday seasons. They will need to do a bit more to remain in the conversation, and I have an idea of how else they can do it. Cloud gaming has clearly been on Nintendo's radar for some time now, and they've dipped their toe in the water a little bit with third-party partners like Capcom and Ubisoft, but they've had yet to embrace it with their own titles. I don't think that'll change all that much. Nintendo will continue to mainly focus on creating games with the Nintendo Switch's dedicated hardware in mind. But I can see them pushing more third parties to use cloud gaming as a solution to get some of their more demanding games onto Nintendo Switch in the future. Whether that be through their own proprietary solutions like they've done so far with Resident Evil 7 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, or with the help of a partner like Microsoft with their upcoming cloud service xCloud. Whichever they choose, I think there will be some some sort of meaningful cloud gaming solution on Switch in the near future to close the gap until Nintendo is ready to come forward with a next generation console of their own in a few more years. For what it's worth, I personally couldn't care less about the next generation of consoles at this current moment in time. So for me, Nintendo doesn't necessarily have to do any of this to keep me engaged in the Switch ecosystem. At the time of recording this video, all of the messaging from both Sony and Microsoft is both of them pontificating about how much prettier their new black boxes will make the games we play. And if it's not already made obvious enough by the fact that fanatixfour is a primarily Nintendo focused channel, graphical fidelity is the least of my concerns when it comes to my gaming desires. However, I am still a multi-console owner, so I'm hoping next gen becomes more than the bulk of the HD era has already been. I have little hope Sony or Microsoft care to be the ones to make that happen, so until then, I'll be holding my breath for the Nintendo Switch follow-up, with still some hope for the other guys to pull it all together. But those are my thoughts. What do you think Nintendo will have to do to keep your attention in the face of next generation consoles from Sony and Microsoft? Did any of the next gen games that were shown off at the Game Awards appeal to you at all? Are you excited for the Xbox Series X announcement? Let me know all of that and more in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you click like and share this video with a friend that you also think might enjoy it. And if you would like to see more from us every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, click the subscribe button and ring the bell for new videos every single week. New podcasts also every week on Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, different channel, linked in the card on the screen. Okay, that's it for me. See you next week.